Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Brabber, and alongside me is Logan Camden, and today we are continuing our NBA season preview content by giving you all our Pacific Division predictions. This is a really interesting one, Logan. Maybe the most interesting division in basketball because we've got some big brands, we've got some drama, we've got maybe a little bit of turmoil, and we've got some teams at the top of this division that ultimately, in my opinion, are pretty close to one another. I would expect them to be in the standings. So, as always, let's start from the top, Logan, and I put the ball in your court because you're the boss over here. Who do you have atop the Pacific Division in your predictions?
Well, drama is certainly right for the team atop my Pacific Division. I have the Los Angeles Clippers winning the division, and they are going 51-31 in my standings. One win better than last year. And let me see, I do have my Western Conference standings here, so the Clippers will be my 4 seed at 51-31.
I similarly do have the Clippers atop this division. I have them winning 50 games as my 5 seed. But first thing I'll say is all of these predictions are liable to change up to the final day before the season. This one as much as any, because we still do not know what the punishments are going to be for this team. None of that has been doled out yet. So we'll start there, Logan, because obviously that is looming over this entire season and can change so much for the Clippers in the short term and especially in the long term with, of course, the allegations of cap circumvention, this whole faux no-show deal with aspiration for Kawhi Leonard as an extra incentive for him to sign with the Clippers and be able to be paid additionally outside the confines of the salary cap without actually having to do anything. This story, of course, has been ongoing, reported by Pablo Torre, and it just seems to be getting bigger almost. It certainly isn't going away. The NBA is investigating it, of course. So what are your quick updated thoughts, Logan, on where you see this whole thing going?
Well, I think you're exactly right to point out that it is the dark cloud hanging over this team's season this year. That's the biggest question about what they're going to be able to do this year, the fallout from the Steve Ballmer aspiration scandal. I think it's pretty funny that Kawhi and the Clippers are just denying all culpability. I don't know if you saw this, man. They interviewed Kawhi, and they asked him just right to his face, and he goes, yeah, there was nothing shady. Also, they owe me $7 million more. I mean, just completely doubles down. It's weird, Carson, because I really do like a lot of the moves that the Clippers made this year. I think in a lot of ways they improved in this offseason, but what does Adam Silver do? Does he do anything? Do the Clippers just get away scot-free? Does he let them just play out this season? Does he not bring the hammer down at all? Or do we see something drastic? Do we see draft capital get removed from this team? Do we see that's my question. It's just like what the repercussions of all of this are going to be. Let me ask you this, Carson. I mean, I think it's completely off the table to expect like anything beyond that, right? Like beyond maybe something with the salary cap or with draft capital. Like I don't really see like how Adam Silver could get any more dire with the, in bringing the hammer down. I don't know what else he could do other than that. Like, do you envision like some sort of major punishment beyond something like draft capital or something with the salary cap? Like, do you see anything like more major than that potentially happening from Silver?
It's possible. Like, we go back to the Joe Smith incident because that is the closest comparison we have, even though that was different and that was 25 years ago. Glenn Taylor was suspended for a year. Like, I don't know that it's impossible that we see a similar punishment for Steve Ballmer. In that situation, Joe Smith was not suspended, but his contract was voided. I don't know if we could see a similar situation with Kawhi or if maybe we could even see a suspension. This is just so egregious. Again, we go back to Joe Smith, but I think that was far less damning as a violation of the cap rules than this, because that was just in secret negotiating a contract in advance. Obviously, it's a violation. David Stern ruined their life for it. Now we are talking about like flagrant violation of league rules that give you a significant advantage over your competitors. And the evidence is overwhelming here. And Steve Ballmer and the Clippers, of course, they'll deny. That's the strategy. But when you are talking about essentially directly funneling $50 million to a player to explicitly do nothing, which is exactly what he did for Aspiration. There was zero public mention of his sponsorship, quote unquote, with this fraudulent as it was company. There's so many eyeballs on this right now. It feels to me like Silver has to come down hard. And because this situation has only continued to kind of grow in scale over the month or so it's been since this story initially broke, at first I was thinking, okay, they'll take a couple first rounders from them. They'll give them the maximum fine, which doesn't matter whatsoever because money is no object to Steve Ballmer and the Clippers. And that'll be that. Now I'm starting to wonder, okay, could this actually be something that like sinks their ship truly for the foreseeable future? Is this a situation where we see Ballmer barred from operating his team for a year, which is the thing that he loves doing so much? Do we see Kawhi punished directly? I'm not ruling anything out. I do think the punishment is going to be significant, though. I think a loss of 2 first-round picks and the maximum possible fine, that to me is the floor at this point because this is just so big and you have to set an example. And I'm really looking at Silver and I'm like, this is a moment for you, man, because Adam Silver has taken a lot of missteps in recent memory in this offseason, just in terms of some of his comments that he's made. I mean, this whole notion that it's not a big deal that NBA fans can't access games without paying large sums of money to a bunch of different subscription services because it's a highlight league. And even if you can understand what he was getting at, the phrasing there, it sounds like a pejorative towards his own league. Like it makes it sound like highlights is all we have. It's not worth watching the full games. That was terrible. Now he's going on about, ooh, I can see a world in which our teams are playing against European League teams in the playoffs even potentially. I just don't like the direction that he is taking things. This is a moment to handle a big scandal appropriately and to treat it with the seriousness that is needed, because if you give them a slap on the wrist, that is permissive to the entire league now, and especially to big market teams and owners with massive, limitless checkbooks to say, all right, just play ball. It's open season out there. The cap doesn't really matter, especially as I talked about when this initially went down with the new, more restrictive CBA in terms of apron limitations. Like, you got to come down hard on them. So I don't know exactly what that looks like. Obviously, that is really the thing to watch with this team going into the year, though.
Yeah, and I think specifically with what could happen because of the fallout is if Adam Silver chooses to do anything beyond Steve Ballmer and bring something potentially down on Kawhi Leonard and what he does this season. That's where I would really be interested. Like, I saw a lot of people joking about it because admittedly it is pretty funny. They were like, oh, what, Adam Silver's going to make Kawhi not play basketball? Yeah, I'm sure he really doesn't want to do that, you know? So,
yeah.
They were saying, like, you know, comparing it to the bad kid getting suspended from school. Oh, yeah, I'm sure he really wants to be here and do his work anyway. So that really is the thing to track. And ultimately, you know, it feels, I said it earlier, but yeah, like a dark cloud over this team, like just kind of a damper that, not that it's anything tangible that we could measure other than Kawhi potentially getting suspended, but it does feel like something that is just going to be hanging over this team's head. And it's really sad because I really liked what the Clippers did in this offseason. I thought they improved by a lot. Like, they added a ton of talent, and that's the next question to me about this team is just how much better do all the new additions make the Clippers? You know, potentially in the starting lineup, you could add Bradley Beal and John Collins. You add in Brook Lopez off the bench. Chris Paul returns to Los Angeles to potentially, you know, go on a little bit of a playoff run as a supporting bench piece. And it's like, with all of these moves together in tandem, it's not really one move, right? Bradley Beal isn't the all-star 30-point per game, 6 assists per game guy he was a few years ago, but he can still be a contributor on a team like this when you change his role. And so, in totality, you would think that this gives you a ton of lineup versatility, that this is going to be one of the deepest and most well-coached teams in all of basketball, and they really got better. So, you'd think all of this would add up to, a meaningful difference, that this is the best Clippers team, the team that has the chance to go on the deepest playoff run. But until we get a verdict on this, it is just kind of hanging over their head, like what the fallout of all of this is going to be. So I'm optimistic, Carson, with all the basketball moves that Los Angeles made this offseason. Like, the guys are older, but in the roles that they're in, I don't think anybody is going to be overly tasked. And because you have this depth, because you have such strong anchors on both sides of the court, James Harden on offense, Ivica Zubac on defense, even if some of these guys get hurt as the season goes along, you still look at this team as one of the highest floor teams because they have so many interchangeable pieces that can give you some punch on any given night. So I like the Clippers a lot. I think they are by far the most talented and complete basketball team in this division. It really is what we're just going to get on this scandal, man. And personally, I don't hate the Clippers or anything like that, but I do hope Adam Silver makes an example out of them in one way or the other. I don't know what exactly that looks like. I'm hoping it's draft capital, Ballmer getting the boot for a little bit. I do think the hammer needs to be brought down on the Clippers so teams are disincentivized from doing this. Because if you don't, obviously, what's stopping other teams from doing shady, underhanded stuff under the table if nothing's going to come of it?
Yeah, obviously this is going to be bad for the vibes of the Clippers no matter what. And so I was trying to weigh out, okay, what do I expect the consequences to be? How much will that affect their actual basketball results this year? And the reality is we don't know exactly on any of these questions. But I thought about it, and at full strength, this is just absolutely my favorite team in the division on paper. I genuinely love the roster. Yes, it's possible that Kawhi is expelled to the dungeon, but either way, I wasn't going to bank on Kawhi playing over 55 games this season just because you know that there's going to be an extended injury absence at some point. And that means that they were going to have to find ways to win without him in stretches already. And they absolutely can do that. They already did it last year, man. Kawhi played less than half the season, didn't look like himself until the last 20 games, and the Clippers were a 50-win team. You mentioned it. With the offensive floor raising of a James Harden, with the defensive floor that this team has, they have a really good formula to winning regular season games, even without Kawhi. And now you inject more ball handling into the mix there with Bradley Beal, with Chris Paul. You inject straight up more talent, more depth in the front court with John Collins, with Brook Lopez, who I think is going to be a hell of a backup center. We've seen his many flaws exposed as a starter for a playoff team, but when you're asking him to play 15 minutes a game as a really good drop defender out of pick and roll, as a very good stretch big, he's going to be one of the more productive backup centers in basketball. The wing depth is good, so I just look at this talent and I agree. I think they are so exceptionally complete, and the ceiling here is really beautiful. So I understand the vibes are bad. I don't know how much this team cares though, Logan. And what I mean by that is James Harden and Kawhi Leonard have never exactly been dependent on vibes to go out there and produce. They have never been your sort of vocal, emotional leaders, tone setters for a team in that sense. They just go out there and hoop, and they kind of go out there and hoop no matter what. Yeah, there have been times where they've been responsible for drama in their specific situations. Obviously, Kawhi is going through one of those right now, but if they're on the court, I do expect them to deliver. And even though I think the future is fucked for this Clippers team, absolutely, because of the fallout here, I don't think it's going to affect them that much right now. Losing draft picks doesn't matter for them this season. Being fined doesn't matter for them at all. So I look at what this team looked like at full health down the stretch of last season. Once Kawhi really started looking like himself over their last 20 games, they were 17-3. They were number 1 in offensive rating. They were number 2 in defensive rating. They were number 1 in net rating. Harden, with his ability still to be one of the most effective isolation players in basketball, with his brilliant pick and roll playmaking, with his ability, as we saw last year, to increase his offensive load still at this age as a scorer especially, but then also carry this huge playmaking load. He's going to give you a very solid offensive floor. Kawhi, when he comes in, can play like a top 15 guy and just be this assassin, hyper-efficient scorer, pick and roll, isolation. He can do that at such a high level. And I really like the additions of Beal and Chris Paul because I do think this team, in terms of their ball handling, was so overwhelmingly dependent on James Harden last year. Even Norman Powell, as he had an awesome season, he was not the level of on-ball creator that Bradley Beal actually still is. I mean, I've spent the last couple years pretty much railing against Bradley Beal, but that's because he was being paid like a superstar and was expected to be the difference maker as the third guy on a team that was fundamentally flawed, on a roster on which he didn't fit. Now this is a team that needs an injection of some of that ball handling. And this is still a guy who can give you 17 points, 4 or 5 assists a game on pretty good efficiency, can do it out of pick and roll, can do it out of isolation. So that's valuable. Chris Paul, obviously we know it's just a bench role for him at this point, but nevertheless with his IQ, his ability to protect the basketball, his ability to make the right reads and amplify bigs out of pick and roll, like that's still there. And I really like everything they did with Norman Powell because of the fact that they were able to buy out Bradley Beal. The way I see it, they essentially moved off Norman Powell, who was very good, for John Collins and Beal. So they were able to maintain a lot of offensive juice in the backcourt from a guy who probably actually fits a little bit better when you consider the specific need for ball handling this team has. And then they also got an offensive weapon in the front court. I mean, John Collins is a guy who we have seen be a dynamic pick and roll finisher and pick and pop big when you pair him with a really good playmaking guard like he had in Atlanta with Trae Young. Now he's got James Harden. Now he's even got a Chris Paul if he plays alongside him. That's going to be a great situation for him offensively, and then this guy can also shoot 40% from three, so he's a valuable weapon to insert into the fold here. Brook Lopez, again, I really like for the depth. You've got Derrick Jones Jr., Nick Batum off the bench. Those are quality two-way wings. Like, you just look at all these different archetypes that you would want to have on a basketball team, and it's like, yeah, they've got the regular season offensive engine, and now they've got supplementary ball handling alongside him. They've got the defensive wings. They've got the takeover wing scorer. They've got good big depth. They've got the anchor big defensively and super efficient finisher and great rebounder and Ivica Zubac who can attack mismatches and is just all around as consistent as they come. I just love the balance. And like you said, the lineup versatility here. They're still a little bit limited there in a couple ways. Like, I think the dynamic of where they go with the guard spot alongside James Harden, you are going to excel in one area and struggle in the other no matter what. Like, personally, I think it could make some sense for them to start Chris Dunn over Beal. They've announced that they're starting Beal just for the balance of the lineup sake, because I think Harden can do so much in terms of carrying that creation load for you. And I'd like to have one of the best defensive guards on the planet alongside him, but you know that they have options. They're going to play some of those guys more in certain lineups than the other. It'll be really dependent on the matchup when you're talking about Beal versus Dunn. But I mean, with Beal, you're getting a very good offensive player and a bad defensive player. With Dunn, you're getting a great defensive player and a bad offensive player. When you look at the bigs, I really like their rotation. They are still lacking versatility in terms of defensive scheme where, yeah, you have two guys who are good in their roles, but slow-footed, limited, really true drop bigs out of pick and roll. So if we're nitpicking, we would look at that. But they've got a lot of offensive juice. They've got a lot of defensive talent. They're strong at every position group. You can't ignore the Clippers' stench, but if they can just get through that, like, how can you not really like this basketball team, especially when it comes to winning regular season games?
That's the key to me, regular season games. I think they're really bankable for the regular season. And then when we look beyond that to the playoffs, that is where you just got to worry about them a little bit more, just because of their track record and just what Kawhi is at this stage in his career. Who is going to be available and ready to go when it comes playoff time for the Clippers? That really is the big question to me. Like you said, I mean, I think they are one of the most bankable regular season teams in the NBA. Like, I just think they are a consistent staple. They're going to win a lot regardless of if Kawhi is available or not. And they're even deeper than last year, too. So who's ready to go? Who's available? Is Kawhi Leonard going to be able to be out there and give you all of himself? I think that if Kawhi is healthy, they're a very dangerous basketball team, man, and a team I certainly wouldn't want to play. I think they can go toe-to-toe with Just about anybody, man. I would expect them to push whoever they play to 6 or 7 games and have a chance to win. Like I believe in the Clippers' talent and ability that much. Like you said, I do think there are a few weaknesses that I would attack. That's true for basically any team that isn't like the Thunder. Like I think in a lot of their guard rotations, if you're going with Beal or Harden and you don't have a Chris Dunn, you don't really have a super agile, quick-footed guard where I think they could get beat off the dribble a little bit by some of these quicker guards. I think, like you mentioned, with the centers, I think if you're running against Big Zoo and Brook Lopez, they have their own challenges. If you're running a lot of pick and roll against those guys where perimeter shots and shots over the top in the mid-range are probably going to be available. But this is still going to be a super solid and balanced team, and that's ultimately what gives me the most confidence in this team winning 50-plus games is the fact that I just don't feel like anybody – in their current role on this team is overtasked. I think they're going to be able to spread the wealth and spread the love throughout a lot of these guys, and nobody's going to be overstressed. So I'm going to hold my reservations about what I expect in the playoffs from the Clippers because I do every year, and Kawhi's health is going to determine a lot of that. The health of this team overall is going to determine a lot of that, but I think they're one of the most consistent regular season teams, and I think they're going to be a top 4 seed. That's my big take about the Clippers. I think I'd be a little bit surprised if they weren't a top 4 seed in the West.
Wow. That's interesting. Just because the West is so good.
I could see I guess I could see Minnesota overtaking them.
Yeah, I have Minnesota above them. I mean, let's not sell short what they've done back-to-back Western Conference Finals appearances. And there is some more uncertainty here in terms of, all right, what the hell is going on with this team right now? But they won 50 games last year, and that was with Kawhi missing. You would think more time than he'll miss even this year. We don't know that for sure, but that was also without the talent that they have now in terms of some of these depth pieces and some of these additional guys who can pick up some of the slack offensively. But ultimately, as much as I like the totality of this roster, I do think that their ceiling is going to come down to the ability of James Harden and Kawhi Leonard to hold up over a playoff run at the level needed for this team to go deep, potentially even win it all. Like, I want to be clear, I would never pick them to do that, but they're also talented enough that if those two played up to their ceilings, I couldn't totally rule it out. The thing is, I'm just not going to predict them to play up to their ceilings. With Kawhi, that comes down more to his ability to hold up physically. I think some people, we talked about this after game 2 against the Nuggets, got a little bit too high on who playoff Kawhi is at this point. Like, he's a top 15 player, I would say, not somebody who can elevate to like that top 7 kind of level or whatever. But he can play like a top 15 guy if he stays healthy. That's the big question. And then Harden, man, there was an extended stretch last year where he was putting up 25 a game with almost 10 assists on 60% true shooting. That's how he ended the regular season, an extended stretch. Then he gets into the playoffs, and he's just up and down. And we've talked about this, but with his issues as a finisher, with his difficulties at times dealing with elite physical point of attack defenders, those guys can take him out of his rhythm a little bit and they can reduce his offensive volume and he can just sort of shrink a little bit when he's going up against these really good defenses that are seeing him night after night over a 7-game series. And if they've got a lot of length, he can struggle. And you know that it's pretty much going to be up and down and probably depend upon, okay, can he have a really hot 3-point shooting night, get the step back really going, or maybe there's a certain team that just doesn't honestly have the personnel to guard him and he's still so shifty that he can get past them. He's probably not going to get all the way to the rim because he is so limited as a finisher, but maybe the floater is just automatic that night, right? Like, James Harden is really good, but with what we have seen over these last 4 years now, with every postseason having some version of the same story where the highs are really high and the lows are so low, the clunkers are so bad, you just can't pick that guy to be consistent enough over a 4-series run because ultimately this team does still very much play through James Harden. I don't think it is going to be quite as dramatic in terms of their insane offensive reliance on him and his hyper ball dominance as it was last year. You would hope that a Beal reduces a little bit of that. A Chris Paul even reduces a little bit of that, although I don't think we'll see those two play together much at all. And I think that that is going to be true, but nevertheless, James Harden pretty much plays Harden ball. And so you are tied to his style of play, and you are tied to some of his highs and some of his lows, and those just become more of a concern for me in the playoffs. So this is pretty clearly the most all-around talented, complete team in this division. When I think about like two-way expectations, I have more questions about all these other teams on one side of the ball. I think the Clippers should be very good on both sides of the ball. So I think that they're awesome, but ultimately I do have the same concerns when it comes to them going up against the best of the best that we've had with this team for the last couple years. I still think we're optimistic, though. Like, if I had to guess where the consensus is at with the Clippers right now, with everything going on, people are probably dropping them in the standings. And I just kind of think, I mean, last year showed you their ability to persevere in spite of shitty team circumstances and still win a lot of basketball games. And I think they can do it again this year. And we'll see what they're really made of come playoffs. Who is next for you in this division, Logan?
I've got the other LA team next in this division. I've got the Lakers. I have them going 47-35. And I think Luka and this offense are going to be really, really high. That's the thing that I'm banking on this team for. I think that there's some marginal factors that swing just how good this team can be, but I think when you've got a guy like Luka Doncic, I think he's going to be able to bring the offensive floor up high enough to where I expect this team to be in the playoffs. And I like a lot of the pivoting the Lakers did. I didn't love their offseason, but I liked it. I think they made enough moves to get themselves closer to competitiveness. I won't say they're contenders, but I think they're going to be really competitive.
I have the Lakers winning 48 games as my 7 seed. It feels to me very clearly like this team is just a really good two-way wing away from being awesome. And that's where the loss of DFS is just so painful for them. And like the Rockets just have such an abundance of riches at the wing spot. I couldn't say an embarrassment of riches, Logan. Some people would. I don't think you can ever be embarrassed about having that bread. Am I right? You know what I'm talking about, LC. But
oh my God, dude, we got to get you on a quote graphic, bruh.
Listen, man, I've said many things that could never be quoted. That's one of them that you probably could get on a quote graphic. But last year overall, the Lakers were a plus 11 net team with DFS. They were a -2 net team without him, man. I mean, just an insane swing. And once you brought Luka onto this team, when Luka, LeBron, and DFS were all out there together, they had a +6 net rating. When Luka and LeBron were out there together without DFS, they had a -12 net rating. So that is the big hole that stands out on this roster. The defense is the big question with this roster. What's your outlook for this team there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't have a positive out. I don't even really know if I care about the defense all that much, just because I don't know how much the Lakers can do.
Bro saw my video on whether or not defense wins championships. I decided they don't at all.
It doesn't matter at all. That's my conclusion. Specifically with the Lakers, it's what you just said. I just don't think they have the personnel to be a good defense. Like, my question about the Lakers defense is how average can the Lakers defense get? Not how good can they be, how average can they be? I just think you have glaring defensive deficiencies and a lot of liabilities at many different positions. This team is very slow-footed. You look at 3 starters in this starting lineup: Austin Reeves, Luka Doncic, LeBron James. I think going to be able to beat off the dribble by more agile, quicker guards. They lack quality rim protection. DeAndre Ayton is not a quality defensive center, and I'm not sure how much he cares about being an impactful defensive center. And overall, I guess the biggest story is kind of what you just said about DFS. They're just missing quality two-way basketball players. So I think there is a very simple way for the Lakers to gimmick up this defense and to tinker with their lineup configurations to get the best out of their lineups. Like, I wouldn't start Hachimura, even though I think that he brings the best offensive punch. I would probably start Marcus Smart alongside Austin Reeves and then have Luka, LeBron, and Ayton as my front court and bring Rui off the bench. Now, you're not getting... Yeah, I guess you are. I mean, you've got 2'6'9" guys still. I mean, the backcourt is small, but I don't know. And I'm not saying that you're going to start Smart every game, but I think you start and interchange Hachimura and Smart depending on the matchup. But maybe this team could be the 15th best defense in the league, and that's a very strong maybe. That's if everybody's like trying hard. I expect them to probably be a bottom 10 defense and a top 3 to 5 offense. I've got a lot more to say about the offense, but pray, go to church, cross your fingers, find a 4-leaf clover. I don't really know. There's not like a schematic or like there's not a path to this team being a really good defense. They just don't have the personnel, in my opinion.
I agree with the bottom 10 defense analysis, and we saw the Lakers able to string together a stretch of pretty good regular season defense last year for a little bit after they had made the Luka trade, and I just don't see that happening again when you consider now they don't have DFS, and when you look at just
it's actually
how ugly
ridiculous.
That playoff series was.
I feel like if a casual NBA fan, like they might be like, damn, bro, these dudes are really hyping up Dorian Finney-Smith. It actually is crazy how impactful that guy is, though, and how much more he meant to the Lakers than he's going to mean to the Rockets, you know?
Exactly. That's the key point, man. You are talking about a position and an archetype that was so desperately needed on this roster, and there was one guy who could fill it at a pretty good level, and that's why you saw such a massive swing in terms of their
I don't know why they didn't go
when he was on the court versus off it.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't go balls to the walls re-signing him, man. Like, I feel like he would have been my priority number 1 in the offseason.
Yeah, I think their hands were just kind of tied in terms of their ability to go out there and get him back with their cap situation. But it's a disaster regardless. And with the defensive issues at the core of this roster, it's just so essential for them to have good wing and point of attack defenders, which they were still lacking, who can also contribute on offense, and they just don't. Like, the defensive wing situation is so dire. I'm sorry. You're not talking me into Vando as the guy who's going to play meaningful minutes here. First of all, I don't trust him to stay healthy. Second of all, he is so bad and so limiting offensively that, yeah, sure, he's obviously the defensive talent that you look at here on this roster as being the best when it comes to drawing those high-end perimeter matchups. I don't think that he can really play for you, though, and I think that we've seen why, and why you certainly can't bank on him to be that guy for you in these big games. And Marcus Smart, he's a nice addition on paper for sure. I mean, adding a pretty high-level point of attack defender, that is a good thing for this team. Also a guy who has some matchup versatility, can guard up a bit off switches. I mean, Marcus Smart is a dog, but he's played 54 games in the last 2 years. So again, you have major questions about availability, and you're banking so heavily on him being available because he's the one guy on your roster who can do that job. But they just have to somehow figure this out, and that's where I start looking at a midseason trade for this team, and that's got to be a top priority to find that two-way wing, because if they get that guy, okay, now we're cooking with gas. Now we're talking about some real potential for this team. But last year, with their big three on the floor, Luka, LeBron, and Reeves, the offense was great. They had a 120.5 offensive rating. That's awesome. They had a 121.7 defensive rating. As good as their offense was, they're still getting outscored with their 3 best players on the floor because the defense was that exceptionally bad. And if you look at the playoff series against Minnesota, that was an embarrassment defensively. The Luka Reeves backcourt is just so exploitable. It is so easy to constantly bring one of those guys into the action, and you can beat Luka off the bounce with his lack of foot speed. You can bully Austin Reeves if you got a big mismatch attacking forward, or you can also get past him with just sheer quickness. Like, the high-level perimeter offensive players are able to abuse those guys, especially when both of them are on the court at the same time, and yet this team doesn't really have the talent to not play both of those guys big minutes. That's why it was just such a nightmare for the Lakers last year. They basically had 5 playable dudes. They didn't have a legitimate playable center, and they didn't have somebody who they could turn to when Austin Reeves was struggling mightily. Now they do at least have Marcus Smart, who could potentially fill that role, but again, they've got a lot riding on him, more than I would be comfortable with. And you just look at this starting roster. I mean, there's no plus defenders. Like, LeBron is the one guy who can be a plus defender when he wants to in stretches, but I couldn't call him that over the course of a season. DeAndre Ayton, he's got good physical tools, of course, and he's a good offensive center, but he has been a subpar defender for years. Low motor, below average rim protection for the position, totally fades in and out in terms of his engagement. And I just think it's very optimistic to expect that to really change, especially when he's got lacking point of attack defense. He's got lacking wing defense in the starting lineup. So I just think the defense is going to have major problems. And if somebody wants to come in here and say, oh, clearly you haven't seen Luka's Eurobasket defensive highlights, it's like, look, man, Luka has the ability to be a decent defender in stretches. He's a high IQ defender. He's got good hands. He's got good positional size. And when he's really playing his ass off, he can move his feet well enough. And like, he can be fine. But the reality is, over the course of a season, Luka is a negative defender. And even if he's in better shape this year, which it certainly looks like he is, he's certainly not the kind of guy you need. You need somebody who can take on actual high-level matchups. And if it's not Marcus Smart, who I don't know how much he's going to play for this team, like, there just isn't somebody who can do that. So the defense, I'm very worried about. But Logan, clearly your offense pilled here. So what's your outlook for the Lakers offense, and how much can that make up for these defensive issues?
I think it can make up a ton. I do want to be clear. I think the defensive issues are going to be major, and it's like when you have this many bad defenders all together in a lineup, the issues just kind of stack on top of each other. Like, it just makes everybody's job so much more difficult. So I don't really think the defense has a chance. I do want to go through some trade candidates a little bit later, see if any of these scratch your itch, if any of these you think would meaningfully help the Lakers defense out. But my big question about the offense is about Luka Doncic, and it's specifically kind of what you were talking about with his conditioning and just in general. What level is he at as a player? I think the conditioning aspect is important just because he's had a laundry list of injuries over the last 2 seasons. I think some of it is because of the conditioning thing that everybody always talks about. I also think a big part of it is just the physical toll and load that he takes on with his kind of play style. You know, like, he's always got the ball in his hands. I think that can kind of get conveniently overlooked when people are talking about Luka suffering these injuries. It's not just because he's out of shape and he's eating like shit and he's a fat slob. No, like, the guy has one of the most difficult jobs in basketball, bringing the ball up every time. He just takes on a Herculean offensive load, but he is going to determine the ceiling of the offense. The reason I'm banking on the Lakers being a really good team is the offensive floor that Luka provides, but how deep this team can go in the playoffs and the damage they can do against the best of the best in the West is the ceiling that Luka brings them to. The Lakers had an offensive rating of 121.6 with Luka on the court last year. That was 5.5 points better than him off the court. And my big swing factors for Luka, it really starts with how often he's consistently getting downhill. I mentioned this stat last season. We were talking about Luka and the Lakers. The average shot distance for Luka last season was 17.7 feet. It was the highest of his career. He was just settling for mid-range jumpers and three-pointers more than he had ever before in his life. 54.7% of his field goal attempts came from the three-point line and the mid-range. That was, again, the highest mark of his career, and I don't think it's a coincidence that you look at his field goal percentage. Shot 45% from the field. That was the second lowest field goal percentage of his career to his rookie season. So I think Luka's in better shape. I think he should be getting downhill more, but that's just something to track, and it's been a consistent thing over the past few seasons where you just see he's becoming more and more jump shot reliant, and I think the thing that makes Luka Doncic special is how he stresses a defense at all three levels. And if you're taking away, you know, the floater, the little intermediate 10 to 12-foot shots, when you're taking away those shots at the rim, there's just a level of dynamism that isn't there with Luka that was from a few years ago that I think dings his production. And it doesn't ding it in terms of efficiency every single game. Luka Doncic is going to have games where he is spraying three-pointers from 26 feet. He's knocking down stuff off the dribble. but it's the consistency of that shot diet over the entirety of a regular season and playoffs that is going to get him. It's just true. Like, you're not going to kill a team. You're not going to beat every team that you played just by taking step back 26-foot threes. You need to find that balance, and if Luka can strike that balance correctly, I think they're going to be an even better offense. But he is going to determine just how great they can be. Because, to be honest, I really like the infrastructure of the offense around him. You have an uber-talented co-star in LeBron James, right? As much as we give LeBron flack for not being able to fully exert himself at this stage in his career, he's one of the greatest playmakers of all time. You can't do anything with that brain. He's still a great mismatch attacker in the post with his strength, and he's still a great jump shooter. So, like, LeBron as a number 2 is going to carry his weight and do his thing and make this offense great. Austin Reeves as a perimeter creator and a floor spacer is great. As much as I hate on DeAndre Ayton, he's a very talented offensive player. So
yeah,
I like the offensive infrastructure around them, and I think this is probably, again, if Luka is what I expect him to be, I think this is going to be a top 3 to top 5 unit in all of basketball. And when Luka was on in the second half of last year with the Lakers, I think you saw that. So I think it's ultimately going to balance itself out a little bit for the better. I think it's going to be a really bad defense, but I think this is going to be one of the game's best offenses, and I think that is where the Lakers are going to win the majority of their games.
I basically agree with that, and I do think we're going to see a bounce-back season from Luka. He set the bar so damn high over his first 6 seasons in the league. I mean, it's damn near as good a start to a career as we've seen from anybody. But then this past year, the defense was rough. The conditioning was rough. And you mentioned the continued drop off in terms of his rim pressure, his ability to get by people. I mean, that was never more of an issue than last year. We're talking about a huge drop off in terms of his restricted area attempts compared to a couple years ago. And like you said, he's just not able to as completely stress a defense when he's not able to get by people with his change of pace consistently, get those paint touches where he can be so effective as a scorer with his touch. He can get to the free throw line, and he can make every read in the book as a passer. To be at his best offensively, he has to be doing all of that, not just relying on the 10 threes a game, which even though, I mean, he has shot those better over the last couple years than ever before, you want him to be doing more. You want him to be doing everything that he can to be this complete offensive engine. And I am optimistic that we are going to see a bit of a bounce back from him in terms of getting more of those paint touches, getting all the way downhill a bit more. I do just think he looks leaner, and this is not just men's health propaganda. Like, we saw him play basketball in Eurobasket, and the guy looked excellent. He really did. And so I think you're going to see him getting by people a bit more, and that'll be a nice addition to his offensive arsenal compared to last year. I don't know if it's going to get all the way back to where it was at in the early 2020s. Maybe we never see that. Maybe part of this is just he wants to conserve energy when he does have such a massive on-ball load, and that's just a change in his play style going forward. But I think it should at least be a little bit better than last season. And we know what Luka's capable of, man. I mean, this guy can average 32 points per game on 62% true shooting while he's also a top 2 passer on the planet. Like, that potential is there. And they got to get all the juice that they can out of Luka offensively. And to go on a run, they just need to get more juice out of this offense than they did last year. Because, yeah, the offense was good last year with Luka, but in the playoffs it wasn't. And even in the regular season, like, it was never as good as you would have hoped. We were always just kind of banking on, okay, once they get there, Luka's going to find his form and things are going to click. And that didn't happen. I mean, they got their asses beat against Minnesota, and obviously the defense was a huge culprit there, but so was the offense. Like, them facing a really good switching defense was a problem. I do think that in this offense, they felt the lack of a play finishing big, and Ayton will definitely help there. That's such a valuable archetype to put alongside Luka. He's such a great pick and roll passer. But it went beyond that because the offense was just really stagnant. And again, Minnesota was willing to switch Rudy Gobert out onto all these guys over and over again, and Naz Reid onto these guys. And LeBron and Luka simply weren't punishing them for that. I mean, they weren't creating that dribble penetration. They were settling for a lot of jumpers, and that's not good offense to live off of. We can praise the jump shooting of both those guys, but when you are just consistently settling in isolation, well, you're not creating a rhythm for your offense. You're not creating pressure. You're not creating opportunities to create for your teammates, and that's why the playmaking from both of those guys was very underwhelming in that series. And so it's stagnant. And then you also have Austin Reeves, who really struggled against an elite, super physical defense where they could just overwhelm him athletically, extend their defense, apply a ton of ball pressure. He was struggling to create separation. He had a really rough series on both sides of the ball, like to the point where I do believe this team, to reach their ceiling, needs to move off of Austin Reeves. I just think that the backcourt configuration with him and Luka is just way too flawed when you look at the defensive limitations. And offensively, you should be able to rely on Luka and LeBron alongside him to create enough offense that, although Reeves is a really good offensive player, like, let's not downplay that. This dude isn't just getting the Lakers white boy hype. I mean, he averaged 20.6 assists a game on 62% true shooting last year. That was really impressive. He is a very dynamic creator, working his way into the mid-range, floater range, getting to the free throw line, pull-up three-point shooter, plays well off of these other guys off ball as well. But nevertheless, the playoffs were really, really bad for him. And I do have some concern still about how he's going to look against an elite, athletic, physical defense. But I do see so much potential here for the Luka LeBron two-man game. If it is either one of them screening for the other, if it's allowing one to operate at the elbow, and then you get into the three-man game with Reeves and Luka and LeBron, and you can have Reeves screen for one of these other guys, or vice versa. Like, there's just a lot of offensive talent to play off of each other. There's so much skill. There's so much processing power with Luka and LeBron. There's so much creation from all three of these guys. The mismatch attacking potential, I mean, it really should be there with Luka and LeBron to be dominant. I would like to see those guys targeting smalls off of switches more and being more willing to play back to the basket bully ball out of the post. They're both so effective there. But if you look at the Minnesota series, I mean, they were so transfixed on the idea of, oh, I got to get the big. And then I got to create just a little bit of separation for a pull-up jumper. And that wasn't the most effective strategy. But the offensive big three on paper, like, the raw talent there should be the best of any offensive big three in basketball. And now you've got a good play finishing big in DeAndre Ayton who can get above the rim and who also, I mean, just has some of the best touch in basketball when you're talking about some of those push shots, when you're talking about even extending it out to the short mid-range. That should make him a really good pick and roll complement. Rui Hachimura, the guy, shoots 40+% from three, and JJ Redick is a very good offensive mind. So it's hard for me to imagine this offense not being great, but they're going to be so heavily relied upon to carry this team. And I still think, like, the Minnesota matchup is the concern here. If you see something like that replicated, again, a elite switching defense, because yeah, it's great now to have a good pick and roll partner for Luka and LeBron in DeAndre Ayton. But if you're facing a switching defense and Luka and LeBron are not consistently punishing that enough, DeAndre Ayton isn't going to be the guy to do that. He's a good play finisher. He's got good touch. He's not a good post-up big. He's not a good mismatch attacker. So this offense is great. I do see a flaw or two there still. If Luka goes nuclear mode, that can cover up for a lot of this. But Luka didn't go nuclear mode last year. I think he's more capable of doing it this year for sure. And LeBron is awesome, but we also do know that he is just limited in terms of his ability to physically impose himself at a dominant level for 48 minutes. Like, the playmaking impact has diminished a little bit because the advantage creation isn't as great. The rim pressure, the free throw rate, like, these things are at an all-time low for LeBron. So his shot making is great. He's still a genius. That makes him as good as he is. But you're not getting consistent top 10 impact from LeBron. And I do think that that has to at least be pointed out. So I think this team is good, but I'm so worried about the defense. Lineup versatility is still a concern for them. I mentioned last year how dire that was. And now, even though they do have Marcus Smart to turn to if Reeves is getting abused on the defensive end, like, You still don't know if he's going to be healthy. And the wings are shallow. The bigs are shallow.
I mean, you touched on this, so you would flip Reeves for that two-way wing.
I would. Absolutely. I mean, if the talent is right, I think long-term that's what this team has to do. Especially because I don't think they're bringing Austin Reeves back after this contract. I would trade him while he's on a great value deal.
That makes sense. Do you know how much money he's making right now?
I think he's making like $14 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that sucks about the Lakers' current situation is they have to make the money work mid-season to go and get this two-way wing. And this position is at such a premium, it's just hard to acquire this guy. Like, I'm looking at these names, and, like, either the money doesn't work or I don't really see a willingness to move off of these players. Like, the ideal fits for me, I'd love if they could get somebody like Wiggins or something.
Right.
Or
that was the rumor.
Maybe, I don't know, the next guys that I turn to are, like, Kelly Oubre or, like, PJ Washington.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not moving off of a Reeves for one of those guys. It's got to be a Wiggins-level player, in which case I would do it. And I don't know that makes any sense for Miami. I mean, do they want a Reeves hero backcourt and they just added Norman Powell? Like, no, probably not. But
dude, the white boy of the year backcourt, man.
They are both white boy of the year winners. But to have a Wiggins, I mean, it would make a world of difference to have a guy who can take on a number of those high difficulty point of attack matchups and guard bigger wings, and then offensively, can shoot 37% from three, can get himself a bucket as needed. Andrew Wiggins, when he's playing his best, is a really damn good two-way wing. But it is difficult for me to see the avenue to them acquiring a guy like that, especially if they're not going to move off of Reeves. And Reeves is basically expiring now because he's got a player option. He's not taking that. He's going to get way more money than that.
I don't know why they would do this. That being New Orleans. If Herb or Trey was on the table, would that move you?
That's interesting. Yes. I would trade Austin for Trey. Now, there again, you have to make the money work. But if you throw in like a Vando with Reeves, I think you're getting pretty close.
I mean, I don't know why the Pelicans would want to do that, but that's the kind of player that I would love for LA to acquire.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why the Pelicans would do that. And it's not that like Reeves and Trey are far apart in terms of their caliber as basketball players. Austin Reeves is really good, but there are issues that come whenever you put multiple guards who struggle to defend in the same starting lineup. And if you're looking at New Orleans, I mean, they'd have that exact same thing because he'd be playing alongside Jordan Poole. But Trey Murphy, man, I mean, if you get him engaged defensively, I think that he can be a plus there. He certainly has the tools to do it. And then offensively, he's an absolute flamethrower. And honestly, the more that you reduce his on-ball responsibilities, I think the more efficient and the more effective on a per-touch basis he is. And alongside LeBron and Luka, I think that he would thrive offensively. But maybe these are all just pipe dreams.
This might be a pipe dream. Last one.
Yeah.
Are you moved at all by Nickeil Alexander-Walker?
For Reeves, I know
that's a bit of a stretch.
Good enough. I just think offensively he's a bit too inconsistent. I like the fit. And maybe if the Lakers are truly viewing it as like, okay, we're going to let Reeves walk otherwise, then that could make sense. But I don't know what they're going to do with Reeves after this. But I don't think they're actually going to just let him walk. That would be bad asset management to get nothing back for him. And they've got a ton of cap space opening up after this year. It's more so long-term, I would be looking to move off of him because I think the defensive fit with Luka is that bad. And he is a good asset, and you can get something back for him. So I just think at some point they need to look to make that move.
It feels like the Lakers have been stuck here for even back to AD, man. It feels like they're always this like one move away, man.
Well, that's what happens when you have a roster configuration that's overwhelmingly dependent on two players, no matter what. I mean, yeah, it was LeBron and AD for a while. Now it's LeBron and Luka. Obviously, the Lakers have nevertheless been saved by Nico Harrison and his saintly touch because now they have their superstar of the future, of the next decade, in Luka Doncic, and they've got the extension taken care of, and bing, bang, boom. Like, they were given the lifeline of all lifelines. That's great. In terms of this year, though, Are they going to be a contender? When I look at the depth, when I look at the major defensive issues at the core of this roster, I don't think so. But a midseason trade would be the way to make that happen, and it would hinge upon turning Austin Reeves into a really good two-way wing. That's pretty much what it would have to be. Who is next for you in this division, Logan?
I didn't mention this with the Lakers, but the Lakers are my 6th seed. They're 47-35. I have the Warriors in my next spot here, right behind LA as my 7th seed at 46-36.
I'm a little higher on the Dubs, Logan. I've got them winning 49 games. I have got them as my 6th seed. So we flip the Lakers and Warriors in our respective standings. Let's start with this Jonathan Kuminga news, because after a summer of no fun, no merriment, no whimsy for the Warriors, no signings, everything was held up by this Kuminga drama. There is finally a resolution. It is a 2-year, $48.5 million deal, but it's really a 1-and-1. There's a team option after this year, at which point the Warriors will be allowed to reevaluate their options. So what do you make of this ending for now to the Kuminga situation?
I find it pretty ironic, the fact that this is the situation the Warriors find themselves in, the fact that they blew so many of these high draft picks that they're scrambling to hold on to him. I'm glad they re-signed him. That's the only reason they bring him back, is because they just didn't want to blow a top 10 pick and just, let him leave for nothing, because that's just wasting an asset away. Kuminga's a non-factor for me, a non-starter. I don't know. People who are still holding on to Kuminga stock, I think should sell it. Kuminga's a trade asset. Like, that's all he is to me with the Warriors. Are they going to trade him? When does he get traded? Who does he get traded for? Kuminga has no bearing on the outcome of wins and losses, of playoff outcomes, of individual games. The guy's not a rotation factor, or like a guy who makes a meaningful difference to me if he is in this rotation. So all of the things around Kuminga basically to me are, who does he get traded for midseason, and when does he get dealt? Because he doesn't factor in to this team's long-term outlook, in my opinion.
It seems pretty clear to me that both parties here are looking to pursue a trade once that is eligible to happen in January, because like you said, Kuminga's fit here is bad. I mean, this guy was deservedly getting DNPs when this team was at full health, and he has some talent as a self-creator, as a scorer, and you see it in stretches, right? I mean, it was impressive for him individually in the playoff series against the Timberwolves when Steph was hurt. But you have to understand that within the context of this roster, he is simply bad at the things that are needed of a player in his role. He has bad feel. He has bad basketball IQ. He is a low effort, very inconsistent defender. He is a bad passer. He is a pretty bad jump shooter. So all of these complementary traits that are needed of a guy who is going to fit well playing alongside Steph Curry and now Jimmy Butler as well, Kuminga just doesn't do those things. And particularly with Jimmy, I mean, it's beyond clunky. Like, the fit with the two of them, with all of Kuminga's limitations, is just a disaster. When Jimmy Butler was on the floor without Kuminga for the Warriors this year, they had a +11 net rating. When Jimmy Butler was on the floor with Kuminga, they had a -6 net rating. So you can't play him alongside your second best player. He does not play well whatsoever off of your best player. And he's shown absolutely no willingness to try to embrace a role, to try to do the little things. He thinks he's a star. He wants his big money. He wants his high usage somewhere else. Fine, man. Like, realistically, Kuminga is not going to get what he thinks he's going to get anywhere. And I think that this offseason has made that very, very clear with how painful and drawn out this negotiation was. Clearly, there was no interest for him on the open market, and so he just kind of, at the end of the day, comes back for a short-term deal. And this is the option that gives him some money in his pocket, and it gives the Warriors one last chance to, in theory, move off him quickly now for some value. Because, like you said, they don't want to just lose the asset for nothing. But I don't think anybody really wants Jonathan Kuminga. And their ceiling is going to hinge on their ability to turn basically his money into a decent role player or two. And I just don't know if that's going to happen. Like, when you look at all of the major limitations that Kuminga has, and you look at the overall lack of progress through 4 years, and the fact that he is still struggling so much at all these things, because even though it's like, oh yeah, he's a really good athlete and he can score the basketball, he's a great athlete. When you can't make the basic reads, when you can't knock down the jump shots needed to keep defenses honest as a counter, it's like, who's going to be like, oh yeah, not only do I want to be paying that guy $24 million right now, I want to invest a bigger contract in him, a long-term contract going forward, and make him the building block of my future. Like, I don't see another team doing that, and that's why I'm not optimistic about the Warriors flipping Kuminga into some really good role players, especially because if they do flip him to somebody, it's going to be a shitty team that can absorb his contract and like is in total rebuild mode. And those teams tend to not be rich with like good role players ready to contribute now for a team that's trying to win playoff series. So for now, the guy's just eating up $23 million this year. His vibes are terrible. His fit is terrible. And I just wish he was gone. I understand why the Warriors don't want to let him walk. I think the return for him probably will be underwhelming when they do trade him. I really hope I'm wrong about that. But I just wish this thing was over with as a fan. And best case scenario to me, Kuminga, while he's on the team, can play 15 minutes a game and he can bring some scoring juice off the bench. Worst case scenario to me is probably they try to force him into a bigger role to drive his value up. That would be nightmarish for me, just considering how catastrophic his fit really is with the starting lineup. And I don't think they'll do that. But the other thing that's frustrating about this whole Kuminga situation is, I mean, my outlook was when he was a draft pick, when he was just an idea in terms of being in the NBA's balls, so to speak, a twinkle in the NBA's eyes, I wanted him to be traded for Pascal Siakam, for a win now star. And now here we are, 4 years later. We're now having to give him a second contract, even though it's a short-term deal. And still, like, nobody knows who Jonathan Kuminga is. And nobody is chomping at the bit to make him a key part of their team's future. And I don't think his value is ever going to be higher than it was after December of last year. I mean, that was the month where he really had the runway to show off what he could do. And he scored 20 points per game. And even though it was never going to work that way within the context of, like, the Warriors at full strength, right? Like, that's when he at least put enough on tape for some rebuilding team somewhere to say, okay, yeah, that's the guy that we want. His stock is never going to be higher than that, and they didn't trade him then, and we'll see what they get back for him now. But dude, he's my least favorite Warrior ever, Logan. I mean, I'm so done with Jonathan Kuminga.
Who else is on that list?
Well, the first guy I think of is Harrison Barnes because he cost the team an NBA title with one of the worst shooting performances ever. But you know what, man? There were some good times with HB. There were some smiles. There were some laughs. There were some highlights. He was the Black Falcon. And ultimately, he's a good guy. He never did anything toxic to fuck up the team. Jonathan Kuminga is causing all this drama and all these complications, and he's bad for what the Warriors want him to do. He's flat out bad, and he's not good overall. And he's got this massive ego about it. So yeah, he takes the cake, man. And I actually don't think it's that close. And what's even worse is you never had people telling you, oh, Harrison Barnes is actually the future of this team, like people have been doing with Kuminga for years, just this blindness to all his major limitations. What a frustrating saga it has been for years. But other than that, Logan, what's your outlook for the Warriors this year?
Real quick, I've been through every team, man. I can't come up with a reasonable trade for both sides.
It's like, dude, if the Nets aren't going to take a flyer on you when they've got all the cap space in the
exactly.
world, you know,
I mean,
who's going to do it?
My only two results, and I don't think either of these teams would agree to this because I don't think it makes sense for them. Washington, to make the money work, you could do Corey Kispert and Keyshawn George. I would rather have those guys than Jonathan Kuminga. Charlotte, Kuminga for Colin Sexton straight up because Sexton's an expiring deal. But
I mean, I would love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of those trades would be better for the Warriors than just having Kuminga. And, I mean, I think Kuminga would be able to at least play on both of those teams. But, yeah, the Warriors have put themselves in this situation, man, and I don't. Like you said, dude, it's like when Shedeur fell to the 5th round in the NFL draft. I look at it very
My goat, bruh. My mime goat. You don't know how long I've been waiting to see mime representation in pro sports.
Dude, that was the most preposterous interview I've ever watched in my life.
That was the weirdest
man.
shit I've ever seen, bro. And Logan, you and I have been a part of some weird shit, and a lot of these people watching right now have seen it. Have we ever done anything that weird? Probably yes. But we're not pro athletes, man. You know, we're clowns. He was doing a clown routine. That was so fucking odd. How do you look at that guy after this and be like, yeah, that's my quarterback, that's my leader? Bro, just say you're happy for the guy or something. Say you're going to keep working and wait for your opportunity to come. What the fuck? What an odd fella.
That was so funny, man. For real, though, dude. Shador's like a child.
And people are going to, like, defend that and be like, oh, first of all, actually, this is a highly intellectual reference to the 1920 classic French mime film, and Shador is being wronged by everybody around him, and Dylan Gabriel is actually a spawn of the devil, and you can see this coded 666 messaging in his latest statement. And it's like, man, I don't know. I think Shador's kind of setting himself up in a lot of these spots.
Agreed. But yeah, I mean, I look at both of them the same way, man. Shador fell to the 5th round. 32 teams passed on you 4 times. That should tell you about your stock. Kuminga, you sat around in free agency, and the Warriors dangled you on their fishing rod for the entire offseason, and nobody bit. So yeah. I think it tells you everything you need to know about him. But the reason I have them below is the Lakers specifically. I'm just worried about if the old guys can sustain their level of play. I mean, I think that is the story and the concern about the Golden State Warriors. Like, this is the retirement home, effectively. I love the Warriors' talent. I think all of these guys can still produce at their age, but it's pretty crazy. Steph is going to be 38 years old by the playoffs. Jimmy is 36. Dre is going to be 36 come playoffs. I think Horford is 39 right now. And, all these guys are really good, and the Warriors were great with Jimmy last year. They went 23-7 down the stretch with Jimmy. They were 25-27 without him. You look at what Steph did after Jimmy came into the team. His true shooting percentage jumped by 6%. He improved by 4 points per game and 1 assist per game. And so, I guess I don't really have any concerns about one of these guys taking a major step back. It's more of like a cumulative old guy tax where everybody takes like a 5% step back that I'm worried about, right? Like, I'm not anticipating any of these guys falling off a cliff, but you see the level Steph was at pre-Jimmy, and you're a little bit worried because of the strain on him and the offensive supporting cast. You looked at Jimmy in the playoffs when he's without Steph, and Jimmy just in totality of last season. Jimmy attempted 12.3 field goals per 36 minutes. It was the lowest total of his career since becoming an all-star. I just worry about the old guys being stressed a little bit too much in their roles, and there's not a margin for them to fall off because the depth isn't great beyond them. They don't have a ton of good wings. They don't have a ton of solid depth in the front court overall, and they're lacking a certain amount of scoring punch from beyond anybody in their starting lineup. Like, there's just not a ton of depth and versatility here with this team, and I just think there's a lot of more talented teams straight up, man, and I just don't think there's the margins there for the old guys to get any worse. Like I said, I don't expect any of these guys to fall off a cliff or magically, Monstar style, like lose their basketball powers. But I wonder if a little bit of regression from all of the old guys leads to major regression from the team as a whole. And I really don't like the depth, man. I think that's the biggest thing. There's just not a ton of versatility in guys I like in two-way ability here. So, again, I think Steph, Jimmy, and Dre, and Horford, I think they'll carry them a decent amount. But I just wonder if it's going to be enough. And there's a lot of other teams, Carson, that I look at, and they've either got better depth or better versatility, or they've got young, athletic legs that I like more than the Warriors. So, yeah, just a little bit more worried, man. A lot of this, to me, not to beat a dead horse, I think it is going to hinge on the Kuminga deal, and if they can get anything done and add more players to their rotation.
Counterpoint. Steph played his best down the stretch of the season. Draymond defensively played out of his mind down the stretch of the season. Jimmy was so damn good down the stretch of the regular season, and then he got hurt in the playoffs, and he wasn't able to elevate in terms of his playoff scoring volume like they would have needed. And maybe he still can't do that, but he was delivering absolutely top 25 value down the stretch of the regular season. So I understand what you're saying, maybe with an old guy tax, but those guys most recently were all playing awesome, and this team won 48 games last year. That is not having Jimmy Butler for most of the year. They were 22-5 when Steph, Jimmy, and Dre all played together. And I think this roster now is better than last year. Like, you can talk about the depth, and obviously it is lacking compared to some of the other teams who we're talking about around the NBA, right? Like the Clippers, for example, absolutely have better depth than the Warriors. But I actually really like a couple of the additions that the Warriors have now been able to make because the Kuminga deal has resolved itself. These guys who so politely waited around all offseason just because they wanted to be dubs. Yes, these are moves on the margins, but that's really what was on the table for this team. And I really like a couple of these guys in terms of their ability to complement the big three. Al Horford, Logan, is going to be the best center that this team has had in so long. I understand that the guy is knocking on the door of 40 years old. And listen, if they could have had Al Horford 5 years ago, I mean, it would have actually been perfect. But he's still a legitimately good player who fits so well here. He is a high IQ passer. He is a high feel player that allows him to thrive in a motion offense. That means that he will play well off of a guy like Steph within this system. He's also a damn good shooting big that provides key spacing alongside Jimmy and Dre, where maybe that's a little bit of a concern. Overall, I mean, you just need consistent shooting in this lineup because they were lacking consistent everything offensively around Steph Curry last year. I've always wanted the Warriors to have a stretch big, and now Horford is that guy. I think the two-man
Post
game
wasn't doing it for you, man.
See, this is what I'm saying, bro. You're going from being like, shit, we have to play Quentin Post because, first of all, we have no bigs, and we need a big who maybe can stretch the floor at all. And now you have a big who can stretch the floor, but then also can make the reads as a passer. And is still extremely switchable on defense, man. Horford is a dog on that side of the ball. And when you talk about the Warriors' ability to switch everything, he's a phenomenal fit there. And I think about the game that he had against the Lakers in the regular season, where for some reason LA's entire game plan was, okay, we are going to continually try to target Horford off of switches with LeBron and Luka. And he held those guys to like 20-something% shooting. I mean, he moves his feet so damn well out in space, and he's so smart. I just love it. I mean, he's a high IQ player. He's experienced. He's versatile on both sides of the ball. I think that is an absolutely money signing on the margin. When you think about the center situation for this team last year, it was the worst in the league. It was actually the worst in the league. Al Horford is a good basketball player and a great fit. And DeAnthony Melton, I'm glad to see him back. Suffered the season-ending torn ACL last year, but he was playing well for the Warriors before that. I mean, it was only 6 games, but I've always liked DeAnthony Melton. And he brings a lot of what this team does need from a bench guard. If you look at his last 2 seasons in Philly, he was actually able to create with at least 70th percentile efficiency out of pick and roll. So there is a dimension of solid ball handling, pull-up shooting, catch and shoot game with him that is an upgrade from what the Warriors have had because, I mean, their bench guard situation was brutal as well. And maybe most importantly, I mean, he's just a really nice defender. He's got like a 6'8" wingspan, really good length at the position, good size, very active, forces steals at a good rate. So he's a great fit at a position where they desperately needed help. And although like ideally it would have been nice for the Warriors to add more of like a true creator, because although Melton is a solid ball handler, I mean, he's not like a very good offensive player. He has some limitations as a passer in terms of his accuracy. And so he's just like kind of fine there. I would have loved to see the Warriors go out there and get a Ty Jerome for cheap or whatever. That was like my hope going into the offseason. It ended up not being possible because they couldn't sign anybody until basically October, thanks to the Kuminga situation. And so considering that, I mean, Melton is a really nice addition. And like, it's easy for me to see them on certain matchups in certain stretches relying on Melton over like Brandon Pajemski. You know, I like Pods. I think Pods is a good player. There are also stretches where Pods is oh so bad, and his shot can be so erratic, and he can be incapable of scoring around the basket, and his confidence can just leave him being able to turn to a veteran pro who you know can do what you need of him defensively and who offensively could be just a bit more steady. Like, that's really nice. That's something that they didn't have last year. So, again, these aren't, you know, world-ending moves here, but the depth on this team last year was a joke. And getting grown-up, proven, versatile vets who fit here is a big deal. Because the big three is a great foundation. I mentioned 22-5 with all those guys last year. Steph is still a top 5 offensive player in the sport. Dre is still a top 5 defender in the sport. Jimmy is an amazing connective second option on offense. When you look at what he's able to do as an offensive rebounder, as a cutter, operating at times even off the short roll from the nail, just making reads, finishing efficiently. He's so damn good. And he's still a big difference maker on defense with his defensive playmaking, his size, his athleticism, his instincts. I just love that formula of having your great offensive engine, your great defensive anchor, one guy who's really good at complementing them on both sides of the ball. And they already won a playoff series with that formula last year. And now, I mean, when you're literally talking about, okay, Quentin Post, your minutes are going to Al Horford. Pat Spencer, your minutes are going to DeAnthony Melton. That's a little bit hyperbolic, but like Pat Spencer did actually play some in the playoffs. It just makes a big difference. And it takes a little bit off of like a Buddy Hield's plate, who you give him credit for what he did in the playoffs, but he was just overtasked. Now his role should be more reasonable. Moses Moody, right? They're not like looking at him and like, ah, man, you could be the one good two-way wing on this roster. And he could just have his inconsistencies there that made him ultimately kind of underwhelming last year. But not being as reliant on those guys is a good thing. And so I do feel like this team is just better than last year. And they finished last year really strong, and they clearly had their limitations. The offense around Steph was embarrassing, but Steph also does so much to elevate an offense. I mean, as much as anybody, save a couple guys on the whole planet. And even with these flaws, again, they won a playoff series, and we don't know what would have happened against Minnesota because Steph got hurt, unfortunately.
If you could trade Kuminga for one archetype, what is the most valuable archetype that you think this team needs? Or what kind of player?
That's a really good question, man. That's a really good question. I would say probably still somebody who actually brings some juice as a ball handler, as a creator. That would be what I would look at. Because I think the big situation is good enough now with Horford. Yeah.
Do you like that Malik Monk guy at all? I think that could be a really good gift for you guys.
Yeah, man. That's so awesome. That's so freaking awesome that we turned down Malik Monk. My love, my one and only. No, he would be awesome. He would be absolutely awesome. Because ultimately, if we look at swing factors for this team, like, they are still so crazy reliant on Steph. And the burden there is just so great that even though I think he's actually going to have an awesome season because of the form that he finished the year in. I mean, 27 regular season games with Jimmy. He averaged 27 points per game on 65% true shooting. The guy was playing like a clear top 5 player down the stretch of the season, no doubt about it. He doesn't quite have the on-ball consistency that he did even a couple years ago. And so it's just not going to be as reliably great from him every single night, and having anybody who could take a little bit of that burden off his plate would be so great, because we talk about how they defended him down the stretch in that Rocket series, and it's so ridiculous. They're daring anybody else to make a shot against the zone. They're constantly dedicating multiple bodies to Steph, and he can create wide open shots for his teammates just because he demands that much attention, but they got to make the shots. And so having just another good offensive player here would be really great. And I do still worry about that. I don't think that Horford and Melton fix the problem here. I do think that they help a little bit, though. What do you think about Jimmy, Logan? Because I know that you were optimistic that he was going to elevate in the playoffs. It didn't quite go down that way. What's your outlook for him this season?
I don't think he's the same guy that he was. I think he's a number 2 now. I don't think Jimmy can take on that kind of responsibility. I think he's a number 2 or a number 3. That being said, I mean, I think Jimmy's going to have to be more aggressive. Like, even the passivity that we saw from him in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Obviously, his role changed, and I think you touched on this a lot last season, that Jimmy was kind of dipping his toes in the water and trying to feel his way around and not not impede on Steph and Dre, like not trying to overexert himself or do too much. And a lot of that is the reason why Jimmy is so successful, because he can find ways to fit in here. Jimmy's got to strike that balance better, in my opinion, where he needs to feel out games and know, okay, this is a game where I should coast and I should feel it out and I should do all the connective stuff. But he's got to feel the gravity of games and flip that switch. Jimmy, that's the big thing to Jimmy with me, is he just has to consistently flip that switch more often. And I don't think he has that kind of gear where he can do that a ton. But he's got to do it more, because I didn't like what we saw from him in the playoffs when Steph wasn't available. And like you said, dude, he has to be willing to take some of that burden off of Steph's shoulders. And he does that to an extent, but he has to do it to a higher degree. He has to do it more often and more consistently, because that's just going to help Steph out more and help this team out as a whole. But it's not some magical Jimmy's just going to flip the switch. That guy's not there anymore.
Yeah, I think the Warriors can win a playoff series with Jimmy playing at the level that he did last year. I think if they are to win multiple playoff series, they need him to take a step above that. And I'm not expecting that at this point. I want to be clear. I think Jimmy is actually still underrated right now by sort of the NBA consensus, probably just because he is like the amazing complementary second star. I mean, when it comes to doing all of the little things on both sides of the ball, he pretty much gets an A+ across the board. And he's still efficient offensive. I mean, he gets to the line at this ridiculous rate. He's efficient on ball, but he is selective for sure. And he doesn't have that same ability to carry a second unit or really step up and be a 24, 25 point per game scorer alongside Steph. Like, yeah, I mean, he's realistically a really awesome 17, 18 point per game scorer who has this all around impact. But when it comes to his ability to elevate come playoff time, I'm not confident there, because even though he was banged up last year, I mean, we just never saw it in the entire regular season, save like a couple games, you know? So I don't think that you can bank on that. I will say, you talk about the old guy factor. I'm optimistic about all these guys being at the same level they were at last year. But when you are talking about relying heavily on three dudes who are in their mid to late 30s, health is such a huge factor here. Because if they lose really any of these three guys, but especially Steph or Jimmy, that is just devastating. They are so much the fulcrums of this team in their respective ways. And I think the depth is upgraded from last year, but there's nobody who comes close to replicating what any one of these guys does on this roster. Like, it is unique how reliant they are on these three players and how much everybody is judged by their ability basically to fit in around them and not fuck it up and kind of do basic stuff. But unfortunately, at some point, probably one of these guys is going to get hurt and miss some time. Like, if you just look at recent years with Jimmy hasn't played 65 games in a season since 2019. And Steph has been pretty healthy, but even he is probably going to miss 10 to 12 games, and that's going to be a challenge for them. Although Jimmy did do a nice job. If you look at the minutes where he was on the floor without Steph, I mean, the Warriors were still impressively good this past season, but that's something to flag. They are super, super dependent on all of those guys. And then when you look at this team's ability to reach their ceiling, yeah, it comes down to, okay, how crazy consistent can Steph be offensively? How much can Jimmy take the necessary step up? But then also just like, are these role players good enough for the Warriors to actually beat the best of the best? When you look at some of these other teams and they've got difference makers at 4 through 7, 4 through 8, and they've got a bunch of different options they can turn to. And we're talking about the Warriors guys again, and I'm praising them basically for finding dudes who are just solid. Like, is there enough ball handling and shooting on this roster? Does Pods take a step forward? I don't know. I'm not anticipating that at this point. Still, are the Warriors big and athletic enough to contend with some of these really, really top-end teams in the West? When you look at a team that is huge and super physical like the Rockets, a team that is huge in terms of their front court in the Denver Nuggets. I mean, the Thunder, when you just talk about athleticism, it's different, but they're so overwhelming there with all their speed. This is an older team. This is a team that when you look at the role players, athleticism is certainly lacking, and I don't think that adding Al Horford just fixes that. It's great that now they have a playable center. That's awesome. But at the end of the day, that's not the bar when you're talking about going up against like the actual elite team. So there's just a couple questions here where I'm not convinced enough with their answers to view them as real contenders, but I do think they'll be very good. When we did our top 10 contender stuff early in the summer before any of this had gone down, I was very close on the Lakers and the Warriors. I had the Lakers one spot higher just because they had more of a legitimate roster in place. And I looked at the Warriors and I was like, there's 3 guys I trust in a playoff series on this roster. Now you've got at least 4 with Al Horford. Between Pods and Melton, they combine to equal 1. That's 5. I'm doing a little math here to say my confidence in this team has increased by them just doing some of this really basic stuff on the margins, right? Because I truly think the Steph, Jimmy, Dre foundation, fit, talent is that awesome. I mean, the fit is just flat out better than what the Lakers have with the clunkiness
I will
of
say
their
this.
three and all their defensive questions and concerns.
I completely agree with that. I like the Lakers more as a regular season team. I like the Warriors more as a playoff team.
Why is that? Just because you think that they
two-way ceiling. The two-way ceiling. Now, the thing that can trump that, if Luka looks like the top 3 player that he is capable of being, I will probably it's determined on that. The Warriors, I would feel more safe picking to win a playoff series right now than I would LA. But if LA's defense looks okay, if Luka gets to that, it's more important on Luka, though. That's the biggest thing to me, is if Luka looks like the player that he looked like 2 years ago, I might prefer them. They're close, but I would prefer Golden State right now because of their two-way ability.
It's super close. Clearly, the Lakers' offense is better, but it's pretty easy to see the Warriors being like a top 5 defense, and it's pretty easy to see the Warriors being like the 10th best offense because Steph still improved this offense by 14 points per 100 possessions last year. Like his gravity, his offensive impact, it is still absolutely insane. So I do think that they're definitely more balanced. Both of these teams are limited. They are very dependent on a couple of key players, but I just like the fit of the Warriors roster more ultimately. And look, I'm excited. I feel like I've been a real downer about the Warriors this offseason because the Kuminga thing has been such a bummer. And ultimately, there is a ceiling on this team that I wish they could surpass in the Steph era. But when I think about where they were a year ago today, things were more dire. There was no Jimmy Butler. There wasn't even an Al Horford, man. Like, the state of the roster was just worse. And I feel so confident in Steph right now, dude. I don't know. Like, yes, the start to last year's regular season, it was more up and down. It wasn't the prettiest, but he was also an absolute offensive hell. They put him in a reasonable offensive situation, and he was playing out of his mind down the stretch last year. So Steph Curry, for a 37-year-old guard, just absolutely unthinkable how good he still is. Now we're going to see a drop-off, Logan. Who is next for you in this division?
I've got the Sacramento Kings here.
Your Sacramento Kings, buddy. Own it and own Domantas Sabonis as your best player and thank him.
Only nice thing I can say about the Kings is they should be fun to watch. Should be a ton of fun. We got some fun players. Malik Monk and Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan and Sabonis.
Nick Clifford.
Yeah, Nick Clifford.
Nick
Clifford will be cool. This team is not going to play defense. That's pretty simple. I think as good as they're going to be offensively, I think they're going to give right back defensively, man. Pretty much. I like that they added Dennis Schroeder to the crew. I think I don't know how much better he's going to be than when Malik Monk is on the court because Malik Monk's a pretty damn good point guard at this stage in his career. But, Schroeder should give you some pop off the bench. My favorite stat I found, the Kings were 6.2 points better defensively with Zach LaVine off the court than they were with him on the court. So that's nice. They had a defensive rating of 121.2 with LaVine on the court, man. How about that?
Better than the Lakers with their big three. Continue.
Yeah, I think the Kings are going to be a fun watch. I just don't think it's going to lead to anything meaningful in terms of results. I think they win, my prediction for them, 37 games. I think they're a lot of fun. I think they have an electric offense. I think they're going to have some shootouts, but they're not going to play a lick of defense. And so I think that is just too big of a core limitation for me to anticipate the Kings doing anything meaningful.
Yeah, I agree with you basically completely. It almost feels like not to be nihilistic, but what's really the point of Kings basketball at this point? I don't know. I have them winning 38
to light
games. I have them
the
as the 12th
frickin'
seed.
beam.
And look, man, they'll light the beam a decent amount. They'll light the beam just less than half the time, in my opinion. But it's just such a weirdly, like, eternally mediocre team with this roster construction, with 36-year-old DeMar, 30-year-old Levine, 29-year-old Domas. Just like, where the hell are you going? Nowhere significantly different than where you've been at. And like you said, man, there'll be a good offense, there'll be a bad defense. I've got a crazier stat for you when it comes to defensive rating with key players on the floor. How about with their whole big three out there, Logan? DeMar, Levine, Domas. They posted a 119 offensive rating. Ooh, very good. And a 123 defensive rating. Absolutely horrific. It's a really good offense. I mean, they've got lots of creation. They've got lots of offensive skill. You throw Malik Monk in the mix there because that's a guy who is a pretty dynamic pull-up shooter and an athlete and has really good playmaking feel, particularly when we look at his ability to play with bigs out of pick and roll and even get downhill and make some wraparounds and kick-out passes. He's good. DeMar DeRozan is still one of the most efficient on-ball scorers in basketball. Zach LaVine is a very efficient on-ball scorer who can also shoot 40% from three. Domantas Sabonis is a hyper-efficient offensive player, great offensive rebounder, and obviously with his playmaking feel can connect things and play off of all these guys in a nice way. Really good screener, too. There's a lot of talent there. But you're just not overcoming this many below-average defenders on one team. Like I talk about these big four offensive guys, all of them are mediocre to bad defensively. So you're desperately lacking point of attack defense. You're desperately lacking rim protection. Your only good defender playing big minutes is Keegan Murray, who I do like, and I think he'll shoot the ball better this year, but he's not going to save you from being a bad defense. So it's exactly like you said, dude. All of their good stuff offensively is totally offset by bad stuff defensively. I like the guard depth here with Schroeder, with Nick Clifford, with Keon Ellis. Maybe Devin Carter can take a slightly larger role in year two. So that's something good for this team. But their front court depth is dreadful. So I don't know, man. I mean
I hope the kid from
as mid as they come.
I hope the kid from Stanford can get some burn.
Yeah,
I like him. Yeah. They're just mid. You know, like the Sacramento Kings are so mid. Like
they are.
And in a lot of ways, it just feels like they're stuck. You know, I don't know, man. I try to find silver linings. I try to find something encouraging to bank on with this team. I don't really know what it is. Like you said, dude, the team is getting older. The stars are aging. It'd be nice to have some young, dynamic playmaker that makes all your players better offensively and, you know, just like as a brilliant decision maker and genius
just
passer.
A smiling ray of sunshine, and he skips around gleefully. And if you give him a timer and you say stop it at 8.9 seconds without looking, he stops it exactly at 8.9 seconds. Did you see that video?
I didn't.
mean,
That's really
impressive.
impressive.
This guy can't do. Oh, Hallie, my shining sun.
There'll be a fun watch though, and Sabonis is going to spam dribble handoffs, and it's going to lead to some really good offense.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, there you go. I thought you were going to say like some inflated.
Nope. I'm just going to retire from my Sabonis hate. I'm going to appreciate his basketball archetype, and I'm going to numb myself to the pain.
Good for you, buddy. Yeah, in terms of things to be excited for, it's all about Nick Clifford, baby. I mean, one of my absolute favorite picks of the draft. This is a guy who can pretty much do it all. He's a very skilled ball handler. He's a good playmaker. He's got great size. He's a gifted pull-up mid-range shooter. He's got solid defensive versatility. He's a great positional rebounder. And he's ready to play now. He's 23 years old. So watch Nick Clifford. I loved him being picked 24th. I thought that he was a lottery talent. Other than that, there is really nothing new to say about the Sacramento Kings. I mean, I would be shocked if this team took any sort of significant leap, and I would be shocked if this team bottomed out. They've got too much offensive talent for that, and they've got way too many defensive problems to not fall into this very specific range of whatever it's going to be, 35 to 42 wins. That's where the Sacramento Kings are going to be. And can I tell you something? They fucking love it there. That may be the quickest team preview that we do all year, but it feels very appropriate. How about the Suns, Logan? A team that is below the Kings in the standings for both of us, but more interesting in the sense that they're undergoing a lot more change. What are you expecting from them?
I have the Suns. I'm going to take one more away. We're going to call a slight.
No.
It's not that big of a change. It didn't. I don't think this team can win that many. I have them winning 33 games.
Oh.
I don't know.
Okay.
I thought about having them go 30 and 52. I may dock them.
What? All of them at once?
I may
How'd
dock
you even
them a
do
few
something
more
like
wins. 30 and 52 is the floor.
Wow.
My big question for Phoenix over everything else is Devin Booker going to be a member of the Phoenix Suns by the midseason or by the end of this season? I think the Suns' goose is cooked. I think Matt Ishbia signed this team's death certificate with all of his moves to go all in on that core. Book is a homegrown legend, has been a Phoenix Sun for life. I think this is going to make him reach his breaking point. Playing basketball with Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks is his major supporting co-stars. I mean,
I really don't, dude. When I see Book talk, his commitment to the Suns franchise is kind of crazy. And it's like even way more so than a guy like Giannis, who's also stuck it out with his team for more than a decade. Like, Book genuinely just seems to love and appreciate the Suns. So maybe you're right. Maybe there is a breaking point at some point, but you feel like looking at this roster on paper, preseason would have just about been enough.
It's what it did for me. It made me want to bail on the Suns. I mean, I just think there's such significant deficiencies with this team. I just hate dogging on a team that has a player as talented as D-Book. Like, D-Book really feels like the glue that is going to hold this team together. They don't have a ton of athleticism in the front court. Like, O'Neal and Dylan Brooks are cool, but they're not like they don't have great size or athleticism. I think Mark Williams is very rarely available. I like Maluach and I like D-Book. I can say that. I think Jalen Green is going to be an incredibly frustrating experience. And you think about him from a step back from what you were getting with Kevin Durant. I mean, I can't think of a bigger downgrade. Like, I think Jalen Green is just going to be bad and frustrating. And I think this might make people realize that Jalen Green just sucks. Like, sure, he can have a game where he gives you a 35-piece on an absolute burner, but he can also have a game where he gives you 6 points and makes 2 field goals. Like, I think he's going to be frustrating. I think they lack really great two-way players. And then I think you're asking this big rotation to make up for your entire defense. Like, O'Neal, Brooks, and Dunn are decent defensive players, but they aren't enough to make up for the deficiencies on the rest of this roster. I do like Maluach a lot. I think Maluach is probably my second favorite player on this roster to Devin Booker. The guy averaged 2.7 offensive rebounds per game last season. He's a great rebounder. He's a really good rim protector. He was a 99th percentile roll man. I think he's got offensive upside that people don't talk about with his touch, with his game on the post and as a roller. Like, I like D-Book. I like Ryan Dunn. I like Maluach. Seems going to be bad. I don't know, man. Is 30 games too optimistic, Carson? Do you think that's too much to ask? I don't know, man. I think this team wins somewhere between – I don't think this team wins more than 33 games. I think that's about the ceiling.
Yeah, I'm even lower on them than you are. And look, I mean, 30 games is obviously possible. It's just whenever we do our predictions – my instinct is to give the league an above 500 overall record because I look at them and I'm like, oh, I like that team. They'll win this many games. And then I realize, no, I got to dock them by 1 or 2. The Suns were a team that it was pretty easy for me to look at and be like, yeah, I dislike their roster enough to be pretty harsh. And I have them winning 26 games. They're my 14 seed. Yeah, I mean, is that shocking, dude? I don't know. Like, this team as constructed last year was so insanely dependent on 2 dudes. Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. When either one of them missed a game, they went 4-23. They were 3-17 without KD, specifically, and now he's gone. They were 1-6 without Book. I don't want to think about what will happen to this team if Book misses any extended stretch of time, and luckily Book has been one of, honestly, the healthiest stars in basketball in recent years, but that would be a complete disaster. This team was so terrible last year, and I actually do think that they have definitely added some defensive talent. They were 28th in defensive rating last year, so they really couldn't have gotten worse. But I think their starting lineup will have pretty solid wing defensive personnel. You mentioned, I mean, you've got Dillon Brooks in there. You're going to have no small guards on the floor, so Book, Jalen Green, physically, athletically, they can hold up solidly on that side of the ball. They're not like glaring weak points. And then you've got either Royce O'Neal or maybe it's Ryan Dunn they go with, or maybe it's even Oso Ighodaro as more of like a true power forward. But either way, you're talking about good athletes, pretty good defenders there. You've got some big physical guys. And then you've got a huge athletic center like Mark Williams, who is not a good defender, but has the potential to be a good defender. We've seen the flashes throughout his career.
I don't know why they'd start. I don't know why they'd start Mark Williams, man. I just feel like Maluach is going to be better from day one.
I don't know about that. Watching Maluach in Summer League, and look, that's a different thing, but he was really just trying to figure shit out offensively.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to be chucking. I really hope he's not chucking threes like that.
He was chucking a lot of threes.
I know he
man.
was. I really hope he doesn't do that.
A lot of threes. I don't know. The thing is, Mark Williams is already a good offensive center as a play finisher, and he has the athletic foundation. He has the rebounding value. Like, I just feel like he's a safer bet to go with starting and not put that much pressure on Maluach, who has still only been playing basketball for 5 years, and does still have more stuff to figure out offensively for sure. That would be my expectation. But look, you've got a massive athletic center like Maluach off the bench, who is actually a great defensive talent, who I'm definitely more confident in on that side of the ball than
the big
Mark
depth
Williams.
is a lot better with, and you got Nick Richards too.
Yeah, I mean, they took all the Hornets. They got Nick Richards. Still, I think this should be a pretty average defense all around. Like, I still don't trust Mark Williams. I worry about him as a defensive anchor. I mean, a lot of his IQ, effort stuff, his pure rim protection, like, he has just been so disappointing defensively compared to the talent that he could be. And I do worry about, like, a lack of true defensive speed in the backcourt. I praise them for not having any small guards. You can just mismatch hunt super easily. But, like, Book and Jalen Green, they're still pretty mediocre. And again, there isn't that guy who is necessarily built to take on those matchups against like the small, athletic, quick, dynamic pull-up shooting guard. Specifically, in terms of their wings, I like what they have. I mean, especially Brooks and Ryan Dunn. You know, if Ryan Dunn is capable enough offensively to justify that starting role, that's a pretty kick-ass wing defensive duo. But that's not enough to make this defense good on its own. And this offense is going to be rough. Outside of Book, there are zero reliable creators here. The shooting is super up and down. The ball handling is limited. Obviously, they're going to have to rely on Jalen Green, who I just think is not somebody you ever want to rely on for your offense. I think his decision-making can be disastrous. He is so erratic as a pull-up shooter. He is so inconsistent in his ability to get to and finish around the rim. And just all around is so up and down offensively, and bottom line for the most part is inefficient as a scorer, well below average as a playmaker. Just not somebody I like, and not somebody who is going to be a good fit alongside Devin Booker. And then, you know, you're going to have the ball in Dillon Brooks' hands more than you would like. To me, when you get the best version of Brooks is when you limit his offensive freedom and offensive role as much as possible. This is going to be like the antithesis of that. You know, if Dillon Brooks wants to put up 15 shots per game, I don't know that there's going to be a ton of people stopping him.
I still, and I get it. I know Kevin Durant is getting older. I know he is theoretically depreciating as an asset. I still can't believe this is what Phoenix got back for KD, man. Like,
yeah,
to me, Jalen Green was not a positive asset.
I agree.
I don't. I get Dillon Brooks had a really good year last year, 40% from deep, really good defense. That to me is his career apex. He peaked as an asset. I just don't get how you come away from this without getting Jabari Smith Jr. or like Reed Shepherd or, you know, like the Rockets have such a surplus of young, talented assets, and I just don't get how your haul is one pick, Dillon Brooks, Jalen Green. Like, the Rockets bent them over and spanked them, man.
Oh, no question. It was a thorough spanking, Logan, and you would know a thing or two about that. But I do think, no question, like KD being an expiring is part of that, because it's like, all right, we got to take what we can get at this point. But I still think the Suns absolutely lost this trade. And the only way I think you could think otherwise is if you're high on Jalen Green. And I just don't know how you could be high on Jalen Green right now if you actually consistently watch the guy play basketball. So there's just an insane burden on Book here. And Book is awesome. I am still a Book believer. I think Book has gotten underrated. And look, like, he had a down 3-point shooting season last year, but I think that is going to bounce back. And I love his versatility so much offensively. I think he's an underrated playmaker. The on-ball, off-ball balance, the shot making at every level, it's so damn good. But as much as I like Book, he isn't a true offensive engine. And that is absolutely what is required here. What is required here is a guy who can take on a crazy on-ball load and carry you as a playmaker. Like, if you could put a Trae Young in here, I think the Book is clearly a better player than Trae Young. Trae Young is clearly the player I would rather have to carry this specific roster. Book is more of a ceiling raiser, ultimate number 2, than he is a floor raiser number 1 on a team that sucks. So I think it's going to be a struggle offensively, and defensively I think they're going to be mediocre. And I just think there are 13 more talented teams in the West, ultimately, pretty clearly, in my opinion.
You have talked me down. I'm down to 30 with Phoenix.
Yeah, get down to 30. Get down to 30. I will say I do like Malawach a lot.
Yeah, I thought it was a steal for where Phoenix got him in the draft.
Totally. You and I were both very high on Malawach. I do think it may take some time for him to adjust,
real
just
quick,
with how new he still is to the game.
Just
yeah.
For the audience to add in some of the stats we were talking about earlier, 35% from the field, 23% from deep in Summer League for Malawach.
And how many 3-point attempts per game?
I think like 5. That's off the top of my head.
So that should be cut down to about 1 throughout the regular season. That was something I'd be comfortable with. Because look, he's got the touch in the paint. If he wants to expand the range, that's good. That's a good thing long term. But we don't need to go crazy with it.
Yeah, 3 games he went 3 of 13 from deep, 10 of 28 from the field, and he had 2.3 turnovers per game. So yeah, there are going to be some growing pains offensively. Yeah, certainly. I mean,
it just looked like he was trying to do things offensively. I did not expect him to even try. When you come to, like, handling, self-creation, shooting, I was not foreseeing any of that from Malawach.
It sucks, dude, because Malawach was like the type of archetype, and don't get me wrong, a rookie big man is not going to completely transform a defense single-handedly or, do this miracle work. I did feel like he was the style of player that they needed, like, last year with the configuration of their roster. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like,
for sure.
Unfortunately, the roster has kind of been turned upside down, and they're not even competitive anymore.
But long term, I mean, I think he's a great value pick.
Agreed.
And, like, his floor setting traits are just so damn high, because you mentioned the insane efficiency off the roll. He's a really good screener. He's massive. He's 7'1" with a 7'7" wingspan, strong frame. He already weighed 250 at Duke. He looks bigger now, man. I don't know. Malawach might be 270. Like, he is a big-ass dude. And he's got good touch, positive indicators with the free throw shooting over 75%. And defensively, I think he's an elite talent. He's high motor. You look at a guy that size and you figure, his value is mostly just going to be rim protection, right? And he is a very good rim protector. But he's also a versatile pick and roll defender. He's got really solid mobility. He's got super active hands. And even though we could talk about his being new to the game as something that'll maybe make his adjustment this year a little bit trickier, like, long-term, obviously, it's great. He's already this good, and he started playing basketball at 14 years old. So I love him long-term, and I really dislike most of everything else long-term in Phoenix. They are absolutely in one of the worst spots in the league, unfortunately, because of how disastrous the Matt Ishbia tenure has been so far. And we'll see if their friends, the Clippers, can join them in that conversation by having 0 draft picks for the next 12 years. That's where things are at in the Pacific.
So I was going to say, yeah, it's nice that they don't have any of their picks for, yeah.
They suck and they don't have any of their picks. The Clippers are good right now, but the bottom is going to fall out soon enough, and they may never have a pick again.
2032. Oh, yeah.
That's the next time the Suns have a first rounder?
Their own first.
Yeah, that's quite a bit of time to wait, Logan, wouldn't you say? 2032.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, sorry, Suns fans.
Yeah, sorry, guys. That's a pretty somber note to end on.
Our thoughts are with you, and we wish you better things in the future. This podcast is now over, Logan. The Western Conference should consider itself previewed because we've talked about all 15 teams, and if you want to go back and watch the rest of our content, you can find it. Our Northwest Division preview, our Southwest Division preview, and now you've just watched our Pacific Division preview. Coming up next, Logan, the Eastern Conference. That'll be starting off with a new episode tomorrow, and then Sunday night you can catch our NFL Week 5 reaction right here, live, post-game, after Sunday Night Football. Get ready for some football, baby. If you want more of our content, you can find it all across our YouTube channel, all of our full episodes, and all of our video essay, video breakdown content. You can also find some more short-form content from us over on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. That is at NerdSesh on TikTok and Instagram, at nerd_sesh on Twitter. You can also listen to the podcast across all audio platforms, and if you want, you can join our Discord that is linked at the link tree across our social media bios. So with that, as always, we appreciate you guys. I have been Carson Brabber.
Nerd Sesh will be coming to you on DVD, Blu-ray, or a theater near you.
That's exactly right.
I have been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.